Okay, Ken Dunek, Mark Eckel, a special primetime edition of the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. We're actually recording live at Sweet Recording Studios in the evening for the first time, and that's due to the hectic schedule of our host, Joe Congemi. By the way, if you ever want to host a podcast, reach out to Joe at sweetrecording.com. He'll take care of you. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by JerseyMan and PhillyMan magazine. The January issue is out right here. If you can see it, hot off the press. A great article by my partner, Mark Eckel, on Fran McCaffrey, and we've got some Eagles and Flyers and all the good stuff that's always in our magazine. So check us out, JerseyManMagazine.com. You can see the magazine for free, and you can get a subscription there as well if you like the hard copy, like old guys like me and Mark like to read. And Mark, it's not a coincidence that we're both wearing dark shirts today, and that's because dark is representative of funerals, which is kind of what it's been around here for the last 24 hours. The Eagles fans are a little morose, if I can use that word, and you're pretty impressed that I use morose, aren't you?
It's a good word, yeah. I like that.
Guy from Memphis using the word morose. Anyway. I'm going to talk to you. We're going to break down the game, obviously, maybe explain why some of these things happen. I have a theory on why the Eagles have gone from a whisker away from being a world championship football team into a team that is right now non-competitive. And they're not competitive against the worst teams in the league, Arizona and the Giants. But Mark, take me back to last night. The game starts out bad. It gets worse right away. What do you think's going on here? What do you think of that performance in a game where they're technically still alive to win the division? And, before you jump in, what interested me was, they get off to a bad start, and Dallas takes the lead. I go, here we go. Now Washington comes back and actually takes the lead 10-7. I go, if these guys are scoreboard watching, they're going to get fired up and do something. And it got worse. It got worse. They did not show up. So we'll break down some stats here, but tell me what you think's going on here with the Eagles.
That's what I was going to say was that, and there's people say that, they're scoreboard watching. That's human nature. So yeah, when you see Washington takes a 10-7 lead, you're thinking, oh my God, can Dallas really lose on the road? And it's on the road. You never know. You would think that would give a spark, give some kind of life. Because going into the game, you probably thought Dallas was going to beat Washington, right? Yes. And they wound up beating them 35-10. So that you were right if you thought that. I actually bet Dallas. But the Eagles rolled over and died with that information. I mean, I'm dying to hear your theory because you played and you know how players think, but the coach is awful. I'm going to start with that. He has to go. It's obvious that Stryken and Gannon carried him the first two years. It wasn't him. It was his assistants because he has no clue. None, zero. So
let's start out by talking about the players who were out yesterday to begin the game and then the injuries that they suffered fairly early on in the game. So they start the game without Devontae Smith, who I think probably, I'm not sure about his injury. He got hurt the week before, obviously.
Yeah, when he was blocking.
On blocking for a screen pass, which we talked about is very, very, very ridiculous. Yes.
So, and who called that play?
That would be the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, but Johnson, it's a play in Sirianni's book.
The guy that
get rid of all of them. Get rid of Marcus Hayes, who I don't always agree with.
Yeah, well,
he wrote a column this morning.
I'll tell you what, is he going to be able to show his face in the Eagles locker room? He's not going to have many fans in there.
No, not the coaches.
Took a page out of your book.
Yes, he did.
Page out of your old book. But let's get back to the injuries real quick. Darius Slay out with the knee. He hopes to be back by the playoffs. Fletcher Cox for rest, which I found interesting on a game that actually still means something. You rest the guy in DeAndre Swift, who had an illness prior to the game. He doesn't even dress. Now, who gets hurt in the game? Well, A.J. Brown suffers a knee injury in the first half. He's out. Reed Blankenship has tweaked his groin again. He goes on the sideline. Jalen Hurts dislocates his finger. Sidney Jones, who is one of the most promising young defensive backs the Eagles have.
Sidney Brown.
Sidney Brown. hurts his knee, and he is
He's
out.
out. Well, he tore his ACL.
And he's out for the year now, right?
out
And
for
Cam
next
Jurgens gets poked in the eye, which I didn't see during the game. I heard that he was replaced later. But so 5 significant injuries during the game, 4 before the game. So you're missing really 9 key players. Is that any defense for the Eagles to play the way they did?
Yeah. The Giants are playing with a journeyman quarterback. They're at this point in the season, every team has guys out. Some more important than others, but no, I mean, no, because the guys that, I mean, you still had, Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey and Hassan Reddick and, you know, all those great Georgia players that they drafted aren't worth a damn.
Yeah, what happened to those guys?
Yeah, because you're right, they're not at Georgia. This isn't Georgia anymore.
You're not in Georgia anymore, Dorothy.
Maybe they still have Georgia on their mind.
Well, so the first half was kind of historically bad. Let me break it down for you. First downs in the first half, they out first downed us 14-5. Third down percentage, we were a whopping 14.3% on third down. They were 42.9. And net yards 272 to 102. Passing yards 229 to 29. And passing, we were 7 for 17 with 2 picks. They were 16 for 21 with 1 pick. Just anemic statistics in a game that means something. I watched a lot of tape today. I watched it on Twitter. I watched pretty much wherever I could. And I also saw Sirianni's press conference today, which was, to me, a little bit embarrassing. But this team is lost, and I'll give you a few reasons why. On the first play of the game, they drop Hassan Reddick back into coverage again. Okay, our best pass rusher, they're dropping him into coverage again for the second straight week. Now he's back there, he's playing zone. Tyrod Taylor breaks contain. He's got to stay in the zone to protect the area. He comes up to pressure the quarterback, leaves the zone wide open. I think they hit a play for almost 30 yards the first play of the game. And to me, this makes no sense. They did the same thing with Josh Sweat. They drop him into coverage. He's playing a zone. He doesn't know where to go. He loses the receiver. Another big play in the first quarter. It just, to me, it makes no sense that they can't pick up a blitz. I mean, it's elementary football. If you can't block up a blitz, then you've got to sight adjust the receivers. The receivers have to see the blitz out of the corner of their eye and break off their route. None of that happens. They don't block it, and they don't sight adjust, and Jalen Hurts is fair game back there. So I don't know what they're doing on offense. I don't know what they're doing on defense. It's almost like all of a sudden, nobody knows what they're doing on the entire staff. And that's what troubles me.
Well, here's a better question. What are they doing on Wednesday and Thursday?
Well, you would think they're practicing at film study, right?
Well, you would think, right? But they played the New York Giants, they're not a very good team. But one thing they do, their former defensive coordinator, because he resigned today, Wink Martindale, they blitz. That's what the Giants do. They're kind of a one-trick pony. They lead the league. They blitz more than any other team in the league. I think Minnesota was a close second. And you just played them 2 weeks ago. You should know what this team does, right? And how did they not how did they not practice against the blitz or not?
Mark, they blitzed Hurts 15 out of his 19 drop backs.
It's what they do.
They blitzed him, yeah.
Yes,
and you're not ready.
I know that. I'm not a coach. I just know that from following the league, that Wink Martindale, everywhere he's been, Baltimore, now with the, that's what he does. He blitzes.
But you know what? I can excuse the fact that you can't block it because sometimes they bring more than you can handle, and that's just the nature of the game. They do a twist or a stunt, and they beat you. I can't understand why it's not in the playbook to sight adjust a route when you see the blitz coming. To me, that makes absolutely no sense at all. And they showed it over and over again. Hurts is taking a 5 to 7 step drop, and the receivers are running down the field, not even looking to help out his quarterback. they're getting them killed back there. To me, it's
And,
unconscionable what's going on.
and then, like you say, Hassan Reddick. I think we talked about this last week. First round pick by the Cardinals out of Temple. The Cardinals didn't know what to do with him. I forget who the coach was back then, but they wanted to try him because he's a heck of an athlete, right? I mean, he can do a lot of, and at Temple he did all kind of different things. So they wanted to make him like do all kind of things, drop him back, do this, do that, and he didn't look like a good first round pick his first couple of years. It looked like this guy's not he's not picking up the NFL game.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he goes to Carolina as a free agent. Carolina says, "We're not you go after the quarterback." Well, now he becomes a double-digit sack guy.
Yep.
And earns a gigantic, nice free agent contract with the Eagles, where that's what he does. He listen, it's hard to find guys like him. You have them, use them. Don't drop them in coverage. You can get anybody, not anybody, but you have other guys that you want to drop in coverage. He's your guy that can get to the quarterback. And guess what? The Eagles aren't getting to the quarterback much anymore.
No.
This broad front that led the league in sacks a year ago and almost broke a record for sacks is not getting sacks.
No.
Because they have their best pass rushers covering guys instead of going after the quarterback.
So schematically, there's obviously problems with what the Eagles are doing on both sides of the ball. Can you explain to me how professional football players all of a sudden lose their tackling skills, like whiffing on tackles time after time again, taking bad angles, not covering the area? To me, it almost looks like they don't practice. And
Right,
I know that's not
right.
true, but it almost looks like they don't. They go out there and they either forgotten their skills or they haven't honed their skills or whatever. But it mystifies me how a team that was in the Super Bowl last year could have regressed this quickly.
I mean, that's why I asked, what do they do on Wednesday and Thursday? What are they? Because it doesn't look like. I mean, you say they're obviously practicing, but are they? Are they practicing what they're not? I mean. Practice is closed to the media now. It used to be back in the day. We used to be able to watch practice from start to finish. Now
they don't give them any time at all in the practice.
I think the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, but
just
for
so
what? For stretch? That's all you get to see.
Well, what it's for is this way the writers can at least see who's practicing and who's not, so they can report that this guy missed practice and that guy came back to practice. Blah blah. But no, you don't get to see practice at all. So we don't know what goes on in practice, but. From what I see on Sunday, it doesn't look like a whole lot's going on in practice because there's certainly. I mean, I've always said this: you play the way you practice. When you have, and back when, like I said, back when we used to be able to see it, I could tell some weeks, hey, the Eagles are going to they're going to beat the hell out of the Giants or whoever they're playing this week because man, they really looked good at practice. And other times. They thought, oh, they were a little sloppy. Their offense looked a little sloppy this week and at different times. Whatever. And I didn't. And again, I never wrote that because that was what you saw at practice was for your own knowledge going forward. You didn't.
Yeah.
There were certain things you didn't report on per se, but I don't know what they're. I mean, I really would love to know what they.
You think Sirianni's trying to be too much of a friend to these guys? Listen, I know the game has changed, and he's protecting his players and all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to really sound like a dinosaur right now. So the game gets out of hand, and we decide to rest our starters. Can I ask you why? We're not playing well. The guys that are in the game are not playing well, and they're not going to beat anybody anyway. Maybe leave them in there and say, listen, you guys play right, you can come out of the game, but I'm not going to take you out when you're playing like this. I mean, that's the way it was done back in my day. You got rewarded for good play and
bad play.
Yeah,
I think he panicked. I think when A.J. Brown got hurt, he panicked and said, I don't want anybody else to get hurt. I don't want any other keep. Why was Fletcher Cox given the day off?
He just said rest.
Rest? What's that mean?
That was the only, Hey, listen, we play in today's NBA, they rest players every other game. I don't get it. You're preaching to the choir here, man. I don't get it.
You only play 17 of these things, right?
Yeah.
Did he get paid? Did he still get paid?
Well, he only got paid $100 million, but Now,
Yes,
let's talk about the bright side, if there is one.
there's none.
We're the number 5 seed. We play Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. I think this is the most, and we play them Monday night, which gives us an extra day to figure this thing out. Not saying that they will, but
Okay.
to me, it's the best possible draw in the entire NFC. I don't think Tampa Bay is a good team. They struggled with Carolina, the worst team in the league, last week in a game that they needed to win the division.
Well, I actually
I'm
watched.
not, now let me tell you, I'm not optimistic. I don't think the Eagles, I think they got about a 10% chance to win this game. And I think I'm being generous with that. I don't think they can beat anybody playing the way that they're playing right now. But I do think if you had to pick any team in the NFC to play the first round, I think it would be, and play them on the road, I think it would be Tampa Bay.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, Tampa is in the playoffs because somebody had to come out of the South,
Right.
and they were the best team in the South. Although you could argue, I mean, they won a tiebreaker over the Saints because you could argue they were pretty even. I actually watched the Tampa Bay Carolina game yesterday because that's I get the Carolina game here. They didn't Tampa. It was you never thought like you never thought Carolina was going to win. Let's
Well,
put it that way.
Carolina can't score. They have no
Right.
offensive line, you know.
I mean, Tampa was never. Tampa didn't look good. I'll be honest. I'm not going to mince words. Tampa did not play well. Their offense didn't play well. But I never watching that game. I never thought, hey, Carolina might pull this upset because
No.
they didn't move the ball either. Tampa. I'll tell you what. Tampa. Tampa has some people now. I mean, when Baker Mayfield gets hot, he could. He could be. He's better than Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
I'll say I'd rather have Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans and the Godwin, from Chris Godwin from Penn State. They're two good wide receivers.
Yep.
Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer. I mean,
Yep.
Mike Evans is incredible. He's still a very good wide receiver, over 1,000 yards.
And they have a pretty good defense.
And I'm going to say, and Todd Bowles, he was a former Eagles assistant.
Temple guy.
Yeah, that's right. He is a Temple guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's Bruce Arians guy.
Yep.
That's how he got the job. I mean, his defense will be ready. They'll be ready to play. He will have the Eagles well scouted.
You think they might blitz a little bit after watching this debacle?
A little bit.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's not. Yeah, Tampa. Again, I agree 100% with your statement that of the 6 other teams in the playoffs, that's the team I'd want to play. If you could pick your own opponent, I'd rather be at home. Although for the people going to the game, you get a trip to Tampa in January. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those people might be trying to cash in their tickets right now. But so let's get to my theory.
Yeah, I want
about
to hear that.
what I think happened. Again, to me, this is an historic fall from grace. This is a Super Bowl caliber winning team that in the last 5 or 6 games looks like they're not sure what they're doing on the football field. Can you point to a move that they made about 4 to 6 weeks ago that we talked about on this podcast? I mean, what major change did they make?
Well, the coordinator.
The defensive coordinator, right? And I
They
said at that
They
time,
demoted Desai and promoted Patricia.
I said at that time that it smelled like a front office move to me. That smelled like a Howie move, not being, and Jeffrey Lurie, not, and I may lose my Eagle alumni status, but what the heck? I mean, I'm going to tell it like I feel. To me, it was a front office move, and to me, it fractured the team. It made Sirianni look bad. It made him look bad to his players. They realized that Sirianni really has no power. They resented the move because, from what I hear, the players liked Desai, and a lot of the players, regardless of what they're saying now in public, aren't crazy about Matt Patricia. And now you make that move mid-season, and you're changing stuff up, like putting Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat, your 2 best pass rushers, into coverage. That's crazy, right? And that's hard to adjust to. And from a player standpoint, I can see where there's confusion and people throwing up their hands and say, what the hell are we doing here? I mean, what's going on? To me, that's the only plausible theory that makes sense. There's obviously something going on in the locker room. You don't have this kind of regression unless there's something going on. Now, AJ Brown is having team meetings and all this stuff, so you know something's going on. But to me, it all points to that move of emasculating Nick Sirianni to make this move, who denied it, but what else is he going to say? And that's when this fall started to happen. The other thing that I think happened was, they went through that 5-game gauntlet that we said was going to be very, very difficult.
Right.
And they won 3 of the games by an eyelash. They beat Buffalo, they beat Dallas, and they beat Kansas City by an eyelash. And then they come home and they get crushed by San Francisco and crushed by Dallas. And all of a sudden, their ego is deflated and they look like a tired, beaten football team to me. Those are the 2 things that I can put my finger on that happen that would make a team regress like this. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on those theories.
I like your theory. I like that the team then lost. If you know your boss in any job now, not just professional sports, any job, if you know your boss isn't really the boss, you kind of lose respect for him a little bit, right?
Well, that and the boss is turning his back on somebody that
right.
they liked and
You
played
like.
for.
Yeah, so
Desai.
that does, that's very, very plausible.
I mean, think about it. What else could it be? What else
Well,
could be happening in that
here's
locker
my
room?
thing a little bit is that first of all, and you and I remember when they got to 10-1, when they beat the Bills, we did our podcast, and or maybe this was even prior to coming on the air, but you said to me, this team's special. They just look like it's meant to be, and I said that's one way of looking at it. The other way is they're just lucky, and eventually luck runs out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it's that I don't think they were ever as good as you thought they were. I mean, they beat Kansas City because a wide open wide receiver dropped the ball
Dropped the ball. Yeah.
They lost to Buffalo.
Dallas because of replay.
Dallas because if Dak Prescott wore size 11
right. Yeah.
instead of size 12,
Yeah.
he gets a 2-point conversion and they lose that. So they won some games, and again, breaks go your way, but they even out over the course of 17 games. So I think part of it evened out. But what I really think is they're 10-1. They're thinking they're the best team in the league because they have the best record in the league, and they're coming off. So why aren't they the best team in the league, right? Even though they have some breaks, but they're still 10-1. And then they didn't just lose to, as you said, they didn't just lose to San Francisco. San Francisco came into their building and annihilated them.
Yeah.
All right, it happens. It happens. Everybody has a clunker. All right, we're still 10-2. Then they go to Dallas, a team they just beat not that couple weeks prior, and they got the break. They get annihilated again. Now you're the player, so you would notice, but now they just get blown out back-to-back games by the 2 teams in their conference that they have to get by to get to the Super Bowl again. I think mentally they said, oh, shoot, these teams are just way better than us. Mm-hmm. And then it just kind of sucked the air out of the balloon.
Well, let's also talk about distractions and some of the things that are going on off the field. Now, the Kelceys have this real popular podcast. We talked at a previous podcast about, Travis Kelce on his week off goes to Argentina to be with Taylor Swift. He comes back and he's playing bad. I'm not sure that's a coincidence. I love Jason Kelce. I think he's the greatest center in Eagles history, a for sure Hall of Famer. But he's got distractions. He's being pulled in a lot of different directions. A couple weeks ago, Mulata and I believe 1 or 2 of the other offensive linemen went to the White House during the week to serenade the Bidens. In a week, they're preparing for a football game. I mean, to me, that stuff just didn't happen back in the day. You were fully focused on football. And I don't think those things help. Now, do I deny him the fact that you want to do something like that? It's special. You'll have opportunities off the field that you could potentially make money with. I get all that. But I'm just saying that it can be a distraction to take your focus away from football, which is really an all-encompassing thing.
It's hard. Football is every professional sport's a hard game. Football's might be the hardest. Yeah. I mean, you can do that in the offseason.
There's plenty of time for all that stuff in the offseason.
But
you know
football's
what? The coaches
nice to have.
don't say anything because they're afraid to ruffle
You
these
can't.
guys' feathers.
Oh yeah, the union steps in and this and
Yeah.
that, the Players Association. But again, the players got to think about that. You want to go sing for Joe Biden? Go sing for him.
Mhm.
You got next month, or do it. Play it.
What do you think Jalen Hurts would say if somebody asked him, "Yeah, we want you to go sing at the White House during the week"? He wouldn't go. There's no
No,
way he goes. He's fully committed to the football team.
I
So
don't. Is this team? And again, I'm not in the locker room every day like I used to be, because I saw some things during every era that going back to Buddy to Rich Kotite, Ray Rhodes, Andy, whatever, where some of those teams were rock solid tight. I mean, the guys just, you could tell they liked each other and they hung out together and they were all, you know, they had groups and it was amazing, and then some of the teams, I'll bring up the 2005 season with the TO debacle. That split the team. That fractured the team almost 50-50, where half the team was, you know, we're a team and he thinks he's bigger than the team and that we can't have this, and going on and on, and then the other half saying, man, the guy played the Super Bowl with a broken leg. The front office needs it. That they did him wrong. They need to take so, and that really split that, and that's why that
mhm.
season, or they went from Super Bowl, you know, NFC champion, lose a good game in the Super Bowl to New England, to a team that missed the playoffs at a losing
Yeah.
record. And that was that. I mean, you could easily point to that distraction, that whole debacle. That was, the whole thing was crazy with To, but that fractured the locker room, and it took time to get that locker room back together. Even though To was gone, there were still guys that were like, well, you were a To guy, and you were a Donovan guy, and you were this guy. I mean, they had to get rid of some other players too after that.
Mhm.
I don't know what this locker room's like. I don't know. Does Hurts have like who? Does Hurts hang out with the rest of the guys?
That
I don't
I
know.
don't know. I'm not close enough. I
You
do
don't.
know this.
Nobody does. Nobody gets that
After
access anymore that we used to have.
the locker room interviews after the game, they're saying all the right things. Goddard was
Yeah.
on there saying, this team is tight, don't count us out. Fletcher Cox, the same thing. Sirianni, gives us the old, this makes you tougher and all this stuff. And we got to go to back to work and fix it. Well, you've had 6 weeks to fix it, and it's not getting better. As a matter of fact, it's getting worse. So you might want to make a change because doing the same thing over and over again is not helping anybody out right now.
No, something has to give, and I mean, you said. I think it's. I actually. I mean, they're favored in this game.
Yeah,
Vegas
they're
is
two and a
making
half
them
point
2.5
favorite, which mystifies me. I mean,
Well, because Tampa just isn't.
I get it. I
They're
get
not.
it. But
And Eagles didn't beat them.
hey, listen, I'm normally the optimistic one. You're more pessimistic.
No,
Give me something to hang my hat on. Let's leave the podcast by you saying, can the Eagles have a chance to win at Tampa Bay because
they're
what?
better than. They have more talent than Tampa.
They have more
They have
talent than
more
them.
talent. They have a more.
Okay.
They're like. I mean, if you just look at forget what happened. Forget the last six. Forget all six. All the 11, 10, and 1. All forget all that. Just look, because what did they say? Everybody's 0-0 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody starts fresh. Well, just look at both rosters. Now, I mentioned Tampa has Mike Evans and Godwin,
Mm-hmm.
very good wide receivers. Well, the Eagles have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They're pretty
Mm-hmm.
good wide receivers, too. Tampa's offensive line doesn't have a Kelsey or a Lane Johnson. They're okay, but they don't have two guys that are arguably the best at their positions.
Right.
Tampa's got a good running back in that kid White. Um, I'm assuming Swift's going to be over his illness by next week,
Yeah.
so he'll play. Now, I mean, this team did not do a good job adding players this year. They brought in all those fantasy players, Baird and Leonard. They're not
Yeah.
any.
Well, I mean, Swift was an upgrade
And,
on
Swift
the
was
off
good.
season
Swift was good.
over
I
Miles
like,
Sanders.
but,
Yeah.
but Penny wasn't any. Penny's was a waste.
There's a guy, poor guy. He had 5 carries all year long. He's getting his head cracked in that Giants game last
They've been
weekend.
better off with J.C. Penny.
Yeah. Oh, there
But
you
but I mean,
go.
it's so. But they have, but again, and you look on the defensive side. Now Tampa's got some players, but I think overall, Reddick and Cox, and if Carter wakes up again, um, Slay is supposed to be back next week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so again, if you want to hang your hat on something, I think the Philadelphia Eagles roster is more talented than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. Now,
So,
that doesn't mean they'll win, but they
so
have
having
more.
having said all that, what do you think happens this weekend?
I think Tampa wins.
Yeah.
I mean, only because I told you to forget what happened, but I can't. I don't. I mean, listen, it's a 50-50 game. I wouldn't bet this game.
I don't think so. I don't
I'm
think.
not
Listen,
betting. Another game.
the only thing that gives me cause for optimism is the line, because I can't see the Eagles right now being favored against anybody. Certainly not on the road.
Well, they've been
Um,
favored. They're favored the Giants, favored the Cardinals, favored the Giants. They haven't
but
covered forever.
well, yeah. Again, that you're going by reputation, and
Right.
sometimes that's hard to catch up with that. And now they played so bad. To me, I mean, how could you possibly give points and bet on the Eagles? And as a matter of fact, you should have made some money last week, because I told you to bet the Giants when it was
Right.
7, and that was a lock winner. But anyway,
I had
we're
the
not here.
under.
We're not here to do all that, so we both won. That's good. But Mark, we'll see what happens, and hopefully next week is not our last podcast of the year. If the Eagles can turn it around and beat Tampa Bay, I do think. That they would be one and done, because they would have to go to Detroit or Dallas, and I don't see them beating any of those teams, or San Fran on the road. So, but we'll see. Football's a funny game. There's penalties, there's turnovers, the ball bounces funny sometimes, and you never know. You really never know who's going to win a football game. So that's my theory. I'm sticking to it. If you have any, and I want everybody to follow us on YouTube. We post the podcast on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark, and pull us up. And we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So check us out. Tell your friends about the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. For Mark Eckel, this is Ken Dunek. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Take care.